video deals with what's called factoring by grouping. Given an example, x cubed plus 1 equals x squared plus x, we see four terms, which a lot of times means you're going to be using this method. But with any type of factoring, we want all the x's and all the terms on one side so that it equals 0. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to subtract x squared and x from both sides, leaving us with x cubed plus 1 minus x squared minus x equals 0. Now just clean this up a little bit and put it in descending order. So we have x cubed minus x squared minus x plus 1 equals 0. Now with factoring by grouping, we have to take the first two terms, factor something out, and then do the same thing with the second two terms. So here, our first two terms, x cubed and negative x squared, what's common between both of them is x squared. So we're going to go ahead and take that out of the x cubed and the negative x squared, leaving us with just plain x and negative 1. Okay, now let's deal with the second two terms. It's important to recognize, just for the sake of making your signs correct, that in front of this is an invisible 1. And that's exactly what we're going to take out of the second two terms. Because 1 is common to every term, so we can take the negative 1, pull that right out, so that this becomes positive x, and this becomes minus 1. And that is exactly the goal when it comes to factoring by grouping. We have this x minus 1 common to both terms. Now essentially here we have two different terms. This whole thing is one term, and this whole thing is another term. So what we can do is just factor what's common out. Here, x minus 1 is common to both of these terms. So let's go ahead and take that right out. We have x minus 1, and here we're left with x squared. And taking x minus 1 out of this one, we're left with negative 1. And that is the factorization of this problem. Now to solve for x, we know that anything times anything equals 0 means that one of these terms, or both of them, has to be 0. So we'll take each one individually, set it equal to 0, and solve for x. So we have the first one, x minus 1, set it equal to 0. Now all we would do is add 1 to both sides, leaving us with x equals 1. And hey, we have a solution. Let's do the same thing with the second term. We have x squared minus 1 equals 0. Adding 1 to both sides leaves us with x squared equals 1. Now to get rid of this squared, all we would do is take the square root of it, because the square root of x squared is simply x, and that's what we want. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do it to the other side, so take the square root of 1. So we're left here with x equals square root of 1. But there's something very important that you have to remember. Whenever you take the square root of a number, you always have to remember to include the positive and the negative. Because we know that, okay, this is square root of 1 is 1, so plus or minus 1. We know that 1 squared is the same thing as negative 1 squared. So we cannot, when we take the square root, we cannot forget to add the plus and the minus. So here we have our solutions. We have x equals 1 and x equals plus or minus 1, which is the same thing as 1. And negative 1. And those are our solutions.